Okay.
There we go.
And we are live. Hello and welcome to Fermenting Opinions. I'm David Papiden.
James McVeigh.
And we're here with some friends tonight, part of the regular crew and a new person, but an old friend of ours. But we're going to go ahead and start with the introductions. Haley?
Haley Fox. Pass it on down. Lace.
Lacey. Hey.
We agree on your name. Okay.
Melissa saying that very nice to see you guys.
Well, welcome always to our guests. We're happy to have you. Take us into it, man.
Yeah, a lot going on, obviously. These last couple of weeks have been super topsy-turvy, and just so much going on. And I was speaking with Haley before we started broadcasting, and she kind of had some ideas or some thoughts, I guess, that she was that we were going to get her to share with us because I thought they were interesting and worth talking about.
Well, just in thinking about ever since the news of the Comey firing, which I know that we're here to discuss tonight, it seems as if ever since that news broke, it sort of had the Democrats chomping at the bit, and you've seen this sort of hyper-partisanship come out of that side of the party. And, you know, based off of what, you know, that side of the story is trying to push, it's by firing Comey, we're supposed to infer some kind of malice by what I think and what probably was an impulsive decision. And when you have this chronically impulsive president, which I think we can all agree he's pretty impulsive, and he's, you know, you add a hysterical opposition, to be frank, that's going to say that the sky is falling every time the president's hasty decision-making manifests itself, you then are left with us as a divided and anxious nation with some kind of artificially heightened sense of doom. And the doom being the I word, impeachment.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And as I understand, Lacey, you kind of had some immediate pushback to that. But I guess before we get to that, though, you know, I find it interesting because I hear sort of two sides of it. Anytime Trump does something that on its face seems really impulsive or just petty, unpresidential, whatever it is, that there's this other side who kind of paints Trump as, you know, the man behind the art of the deal. That there's some grand strategy behind it all, and this is just what it appears on its face. And before we get to Lace, I wanted to ask everyone here, you know, what they thought about that. Did they think there's really anything to that, or, you know, I mean, is he the Kaiser Sose of presidency, or is he exactly what he looks like?
I mean, I'm a fan of Trump. Have I thought at times, was he, you know, trying to, you know, practice what he preached and don't make someone think that that's that you absolutely have to have this deal, walking away from healthcare the first time? There's been some other examples of it that I've seen. Do I think he's the deal maker? I mean, I don't have the highest opinion of him. So I don't know if that's a fair question. I've seen shades of it. But, you know, I also recognize that my opinion of him is extremely jaded. But, I mean, I've seen shades of it, but I haven't really seen the sort of deal maker that was promised by any means.
Yeah, but did anyone really expect to get that?
I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah. People thought he was selling.
Right. I mean, yeah, he is our president. I mean,
It was my understanding, though, that
sell that deal pretty well.
my understanding of it was that a lot of his base, having talked to people, at least anecdotally, from what I know, a lot of them say that they didn't necessarily expect him to be some mastermind of deal making in government, but moreover that he was going to, quote unquote, drain the swamp, to change things up, to make things less old guard political.
Like hiring your family that he's did?
Yeah, and appointing a bunch of billionaires.
Apparently nepotism was on the plate, but
yeah. Well, I guess that's neither here nor there, really. I mean, it just comes down to, you know, the way I think about it is a lot of Trump, they say, oh, well, he's such a great businessman, this and that. He's, you know, he is the art of the deal. Look at him, he's so successful, all his companies, all his businesses, all his stuff. And, you know, whether or not that really does show he's got some kind of competence on this level, or if he's just not failed harder out of luck, basically. Like, and that's because to me that's what it looks like. But again, like I'm super jaded. It's really hard to say anything nice about him anywhere ever, and I have to sort of.
You're not alone, Dave, but I'm super jaded too.
I mean, I was happy with the
Yeah, you shut up about it.
Yeah, that's all I've got. That's all
Melissa,
I've got.
did you have any?
Melissa?
No, I'm super jaded too. I've not been happy with a president in my voting years. I graduated high school in 1988, and I got to vote for the first time for George Bush the Senior. I wasn't happy with the way he conducted his presidency, and I certainly was not happy with Clinton, and I was not happy with W the Junior, and I've not been happy with anybody since I've been of voting eligibility. Used to be a Republican because that's my family's heritage. We were conservative voters, and I'm still conservative, but I find myself leaning more towards libertarian. And I don't find that, I'm sorry, y'all, I've got hair in my face. I don't find that there's really a candidate that represents my political leanings, my political beliefs, that can be qualified for election. And that's frustrating because I find myself having to choose between the lesser of two evils, and I really don't see there is a lesser. They're both evil.
Well, I think
so,
it's over, but... You know, I mean, like, I don't want to harp on that. It's just, you know, I hear you. You know, I wasn't satisfied with this election. You know, it's bad whenever you don't have two candidates that you're really into. You know,
exactly.
But you know, I do think that we need to not bring up Hillary.
That would be a great point. It's hard to have a discussion, though. Haley, it's hard to have a discussion these days because there are a lot of people that want to throw, you know, this, that, and the other thing around when they have a discussion. And, you know, and I believe that. I agree with you. It's, you know, don't, you know, displace the blame. Don't displace the discussion. Don't try to deflect the conversation. But I have to say that someone, I forgot who it was, but someone placed an article on either Fermenting Opinions or Whiskey and Politics, and then was it Boone Roundtree that said something about this is the crux of the matter. You know, it's a matter of how partisan we've become as a country that we can't have an honest discussion because it's become so wrapped up. I think one of you, and I think I commented and copied his last comment. Maybe I'm running on. Y'all, I'm on antibiotics right now. I'm sorry.
What's your point, though? What are you trying to get at?
What I'm trying to say is there was an article that I posted, and the end sentence was, but this is where we've come to as a place in a partisan America is we're all victims of this bipartisan mixed milieu where we cannot seem to agree on anything, but we're just so polarized. And we cannot say, well, this is...
All right, I'll let Lace go. Lace, you?
Yeah, you remember what I was talking about, Lace?
Yeah.
I mean, I do. Actually, Melissa, I do think that I understand exactly what you're talking about. I think you're saying that we're all feeding off of information and then coming together in a place that's meant to have public discourse. And it's remarkably failing to communicate. And I think that the reason we're failing to communicate is we have become so politicized. And it's ironic that you hit on the fact that growing up, well, let me take a step back. I think that we are all the sum of our experiences, and our experiences are picked up through the years that we live. And so if you've lived longer, you've been through more presidencies. And what you're saying is that I haven't been through a president that I like, that I felt I could really relate to completely. And so much so that it's like where you're almost like, I wouldn't say you're 50-50, but a substantial percentage of yourself is outside of the Republican Party. And believe it or not, I feel that way about the Democratic Party. Now, I'm much more Democratic than I am Republican, but at the same time, how do people define themselves now? Yes, some of us take a stand and we say, I'm a libertarian, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. Then some of us are like a little bit more, look, I'm going to be independent because I don't want to have to like really pick one, and I don't blame them. But I guess what I'm trying to say is,
I'm a registered independent.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. It means that you don't really have enough in relation to any of them. And Melissa, what you said is right about the two-party system sucks, because to me, a libertarian is someone who's sort of social. Well, they want, and James, you can correct me when I mess this up, but they're pro-constitution and they're pro-states' rights and limited government.
Yes.
And so I also consider it kind of social. Then I also think some libertarians, though, the ones that are kind of more democratic, are the ones that are also, I think, very socially liberal. And then
all libertarians are socially liberal theoretically. That's like the real basis of individual liberty.
Government.
Yes, and I agree, James.
Okay, because then this is where I get confused. Does social liberalism equal your pro like abortion right?
No.
The
I
libertarian
don't want to go.
Yeah, I don't want to get into abortion. I don't want to even get into the topic. I'm just
I was going to say,
I was like, no!
the
really
libertarian
about
party,
me
actual
understanding socially liberal to libertarians. That's all I want to do.
the Libertarian Party as an actual entity is pro-choice.
Okay, that's what I needed to hear. Okay.
Well, and I want to say that sorry, Lace, I don't mean to interrupt you, but as a clarification, as a libertarian, I am as you probably could surmise, I am a right-leaning libertarian.
Right. Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Like someone like James, I would consider more left-leaning libertarian.
I still fall on the right in the political compass, but yeah, I'm
libertarianism
moderate.
does fall on the right of the political spectrum, but there's a lot of nuance. That's the point.
Biases, though, and as we're going through this, which is, I think, something that we definitely need to keep in mind as we start discussing, this whole Comey firing, the Russia thing, and what it means for us right now.
Very true.
Right. Well, yeah, we're getting to all of that. Lace, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say back to the very beginning of the start of the show, whenever Haley had said something, just to kind of maybe get it back to full circle and bring it to that, because actually this whole thing this tangent that we've gone off on, and Melissa took us in a good direction, because the sum of our experiences really kind of brings me back to what my criticism is of the initial statements that kind of blaming it all on like the Democrats running around saying the sky is falling. And the reason I say that is because I think that sort of puts everybody into the same category. And like, so for myself, and this is kind of embarrassing, but I really didn't get into politics until like my first semester of college. Even then it was kind of like, whatever. And I remember Bush and I liked him, but I didn't really care that much one way or the other. And it's really been since, and I frankly, I didn't like Hillary in one. Like, my problem with Hillary was that she had tried to silence all those women, and that pissed me off. But there was just something about Trump that, as someone who was never really that much into politics, got me really actively involved in this election. And even so much so that it's like made me think like, oh my God, I could never even think like a Republican again. And so whenever y'all say like, oh, you're running around like the sky's falling, yeah, you're right. I think that there's a bunch of people on the left that do that, and it is freaking annoying. But there's also people like me who are genuinely that upset about what's going on, and they feel like this is the first time anything like this has really happened, that it's unprecedented.
And, whenever I was saying that Democrats are running around saying, I mean our elected representatives, and then I was referring to us as news consumers. So, you got to admit that the moment that Comey was firing, every single Democratic in D.C. was like, oh, my God.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I admit it, my boss thinks she's of the mind that people that voted for Trump should, be sued for treason. Like, jokingly, but, that's her.
He's not an elected official. He's talking to the news. But let's get into the Comey firing.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that. I think Haley's become our new host.
Yeah, sure.
and that's fine.
That is such a role change from last week.
Oh yeah, my bad, guys.
It was our special.
That was an interesting episode. We're going to get into now some of the things we didn't really get to cover last week. If anybody who's watching this or will watch this watched the episode from last week. We didn't really talk about anything at all, but what constitutes evidence in the court of law. We had one person was disagreeing with lawyers as to what constitutes evidence. But tonight we're going to talk about Comey getting fired. Tying into your opening statement, Haley, with regards to, was this an impulsive decision? Was it him trying to make it look like an impulsive decision, make it look like something he had planned for months in advance? Or was this really just something because Sessions and, what was the other guy's name? Rosenstein had recommended, and the timing of that and how fishy is that?
Okay, to jump in here just for a second on that issue. I think we can all agree pretty much at this point that that the original idea, the premise behind the firing of Director Comey or former Director Comey was not what the Department of Justice put out, right? Like Sessions and Rosenstein both put out letters to I guess, compliment Donald Trump, to recommend his firing. Especially Rosenstein wrote a memo basically saying he deserves to be fired because he mishandled the Hillary Clinton investigation.
Well, I think that sort of gets into, there is, a definite communication failure on a part of the administration. Whenever you have things like the, assistant AG and Sessions telling Trump and then Trump going with Lester Holt and saying something different. I think that the only thing that we do know is that we don't know enough information to know why he did it, but I think it's impulsive based off of the fact that he didn't have a replacement lined up.
Well, that happens occasionally, but my main concern here is that Sessions and Rosenstein handcrafted an excuse to fire Comey. That they developed it, they gave him what he needed, and then the next day he goes on the air and says, "Yeah, I was going to do it anyway. I really don't care." And what I was really thinking about was this whole investigation into me.
I thought the memo was never written. I thought that was completely a lie.
What was a lie?
I thought that there was something that that there were people that had come out and said that he had given a reason for it, but that was either not the reason, but that it hadn't happened. Was that, I don't know, because this was one of the ones I didn't read as much about. So what were the...
He went on an interview with Lester Holt. And
yeah, that's what I was talking about. His interview with Lester Holt the next day, he was obviously asked about the Comey firing, and he said,
no,
essentially that
he wasn't doing a good job.
He said he wasn't doing a good job, and then he said, I really didn't.
This whole Trump-Russia thing, that's like an exact quote. He said, this whole Trump-Russia thing, which I was like, Trump, you never want to say Russia right next to your last name.
Yeah, seriously. He was like, but that's what it was. He said, the first thing he said was, I was going to fire him anyway, no matter what they recommended.
Yeah, right.
And then the next thing he said was, and yeah, I was thinking about this whole Trump-Russia thing and how bogus it is. They handcrafted an excuse that you were supposed to play into the excuse. That's how it works. Trust your lawyers. They gave you the out.
But I think that brings me to whenever you have all of these, communication failures between the whole administration, and we're totally going to get into this. This is all going to be conjecture, but every single news consumer is subject to theories based on conjecture.
That's the thing.
You have all misfirings from
a communication failure.
direction.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not a communication failure. Donald Trump wrote a letter and then attached the memo Rosenstein wrote for the reasoning.
Did Donald Trump write that letter?
Sessions backed Rosenstein's reasoning, and then it's all attached to the Trump said that I'm relying on them first. No, they were attached.
Attached to, but were they written first, timeline-wise?
Oh, yes. Rosenstein's memo came first, but I'm saying Donald Trump's firing letter, the letter he wrote Comey, says attached to this are letters and memos from Sessions and from Rosenstein that recommend your firing based on your mishandling of Hillary Clinton's investigation. Yeah. And then the next day he was like, fuck it. I'm going to fire him anyway.
He's like, I was very professional. You're fired.
Why is that not a clear example of a miscommunication in the administration? I know it's the Trump administration, but Trump is still...
Because Donald Trump's name and signature was on the letter that fired Comey, citing the news report, or citing the memos that were supposed to be the basis for the firing. That's not a miscommunication.
Yeah,
He
I
knew
thought-
about it, obviously signed his name to the piece of paper.
I didn't have,
I think she's saying because he wasn't on the same message as the memos.
Yeah, it's a communication error. He's saying something different.
He wrote a letter and signed it, citing those memos.
Yeah, and it's still a contradiction.
Yeah, no, but how's that a communication?
Is everyone sure that there was a memo from the guy with the long R name?
Rosenstein.
We're positive that there was.
Yes, I've read the memo. It was attached to the letter.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't clear on.
Yeah, it basically said that.
It's a I mean, even if you sign your name to something and you say something later on that's different, you know, like, I mean.
Oh yeah, no, that's usually a sign that you're lying.
He's trying to talk to the person he's firing, the American public, and you know he's shooting different messages. It's a
Generally speaking, we call that a lie.
Let me ask it this way, and let me ask Melissa because she's been quiet for a minute. Melissa, why do you think Trump fired Comey? In your opinion, you don't have to prove it, but in your opinion.
In my opinion, and I'm not a Trump fan, and you know that.
Right.
In my opinion, I think that he boasted about it before he had an opportunity to do so, and he should have done so when he was boasting about it. But I think at this time, it was an opportunistic move on his part.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably was the wrong thing to do at the wrong time for the wrong reasons.
I mean, if we're going to take him at his word.
Hey, may I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
When does Sally Yates' hearing? Because Comey was fired a day ago, and Sally Yates' hearing was last Wednesday, right?
No.
It was a Monday. It was Monday. It was last
It was
Monday.
Monday, and he was fired Tuesday, right?
May 8th, I believe, Monday was Yates' hearing.
Yeah.
I've
Because
heard.
our show was last week on the 10th, and that was like a day or two after, I think.
Yeah, Comey was fired almost immediately after Yates.
It was 2 days after.
Yeah, it was pretty close.
Okay.
It was 2 days after. Positive about that.
I do not envy being Donald Trump right now. I think it personally must suck to be Donald Trump right now. And I think that he is being hit by a whole lot of stress bombs, and he can't seem to turn around and not cause another political fuck up, so to speak. And I think that this decision was ultimately impulsive. I don't think he thought about it that much, and it was impulsive.
I mean, he basically did as such.
My comment is, if I'm here to defend Donald Trump,
You don't have to be.
No, not at all.
you picked the wrong girl.
Boy.
I'm not the girl to defend Donald Trump.
No, you're.
Me either, Melissa.
Yeah, I'm not here to defend Donald Trump. I think that, you know, can I just be honest and say something? I alluded to this on Fermenting Opinions earlier. I know that a lot of staunch Republicans, from, you know, having their heads up their Republican assholes, have been bitching about Barack Obama for 8 years. And I've had some complaints about some of Obama's policies myself. But I have, like I said, immense schadenfreude, because what I'm watching right now from those die-hard yellow dog liberals, from the cradle to the grave liberals, bitching right now about Trump, I kind of feel like, you know, well, tit for tat. Here we go. It's like the pendulum swings one way and then it swings the other. But the thing is, I'm kind of riding that pendulum. I'm neither liberal nor conservative. I'm just kind of waiting for it all to just settle down in the middle, where we can all just go, okay, well, that was crazy, wasn't it? Let's figure this shit out.
Okay, if we have any artists watching this show, by the way, I really want someone to do a little caricature of Melissa literally hanging onto the pendulum and eating popcorn at the same time.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, but definitely.
All right. Well, hey, Melissa, do you think Trump, either himself or someone high up in his party, colluded with the Russians to win the election?
You know what? I really don't think there was Russian collusion as everyone wants us to believe it. I don't think that any more than we were misled with what Hillary Clinton had on her private server. If if we're to believe that Hillary's private server was hacked, then I mean, you know what, Haley, that's a good question. I really don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't want to believe that.
You immediately started talking about Hillary Clinton, though. Are you convinced that she did something wrong?
Well, she had a private server, and no Secretary of State had a private server, but they did use private email. And that's the difference.
I think that you're on something there.
Fact is well established that you associate wrongdoing.
I mean,
well, I think that
the idea behind the private server was to avoid FOIA. That was it.
And explain what that is.
FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act. And basically all government employees of any level, from all the way down to like your lowest level of city cop, all the way up to President of the United States, are subject to FOIA. If you're in a position in government, if you use government property, you do government decisions. Basically, theoretically, anything you've written or produced can be subpoenaed or, I guess, ordered by a court to be produced to the public. I think the initial idea of her using a private server was to avoid FOIA. I mean,
and that's
what's your basis of that?
Well, why
spend
so much money and go through so much trouble to develop your own private server and your own private email system, other than to avoid government red tape?
I mean, my law firm has their own private server.
Is your law firm a government entity?
No, but I mean, it works.
There's the answer. That's it right there. You just answered the question. Next. I mean,
okay.
Why else?
I've got a point of order this. That we started this by saying we're not going to go.
We're not going to indict Hillary Clinton. Here we are trying to indict Hillary Clinton.
Mitigating this aspect, it really comes down to, does Melissa or anybody else think that there was actual collusion between the campaign and Russian agents, Russian operatives?
I'll say.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David, for bringing it back. I really don't. I think that both parties are trying to investigate that with their own agendas.
I would have to
know, and I don't know that I would say that that's going to be at the root of it, because here's the issue. Have we not also insinuated ourselves in the elections of other nations?
Maybe so. I actually don't know the answer. To me, it does not matter.
Well, because
we all know about Banana Republic as a clothing store. We all know how it got its name, right?
Right. No, I understand. And,
well, that wasn't the question, though.
Other elections.
I'm just going down that particular rabbit trail, and the reason why is we have to say, well, just whether or not we did or should have. I would say probably no. But when it comes to us, do Americans want to feel comfortable with the idea that there are
Banana Republic?
Are we going to be a Banana Republic? Do we want other countries influencing the outcome of our elections in ways that are beneficial to them politically? Do we want to allow that? I think the answer should be, for anybody who likes to call themselves a patriot or an American, should be no. This should be,
yeah, because voting is an American right, not a Russian one, and Russians can't influence.
Hang on. In all fairness, that wasn't the question levied initially. The question was, did the Trump campaign collude with Russia? There's no doubt that Russia tried to interfere in our election.
Right. That's a separate issue.
To clarify, can I say something to you real quick? I agree, because that was the one thing I thought. It wasn't necessarily just Trump. I mean, it could have been. All it has to be is that Trump knew about it and didn't stop it, because he was in a position to stop it.
Yes. I mean, that's the definition of conspiracy. Know what the plan is, take one step, enact the plan.
It's collusion for sure, and it's what would get him in trouble. I think, as any reasonable person would think, that is, I mean, I don't know, is gross negligence an option?
For collusion or for conspiracy? No. You have to have specific intent to further the plan.
Well, is there such a thing as a crime as interfering in an election? I mean, I honestly don't know. I mean,
I would say that's
depends on what we're talking about. It doesn't matter on that end though, because that brings us to another topic.
I'm just trying to think of legal theories that
we need to talk about the dreaded I word and the idea of impeachment.
Well, but before we get to that, let's talk about Meuller.
Oh Lord! Oh my goodness!
Before we go to the big ugly eye, this doom that we were talking about at the very beginning of the show. They've appointed, and I don't know who they is, but they do.
That was Rosenstein.
Rosenstein, okay, same guy who recommended Comey's firing, has appointed Meuller as a special investigator into specifically the Russian interference in the 2016 election, and whether or not that involves collusion with the Trump campaign.
Yes.
Which is not to presume that at the outset, but that's what's being looked into.
They have to set a scope for what the special prosecutor can actually look into, and the scope is essentially Russian interference in the election, involvement of associates of Donald Trump, or Donald Trump's campaign, anyone associated with Donald Trump's campaign.
And do you need to talk, or
no, Matthias, no.
Get out of here, Matthias.
Maybe I'm naive, and I probably am quite naive, but I have a hard time believing that whatever collusion there might have been would be instrumental in switching the voting electorate. I feel like what
the election.
I don't think that they could prove that it caused it, but it's he had knowledge of it. That's election fraud.
Yes, if you intended.
But there's no such thing as election fraud. There's no such thing as election fraud.
Well, I think there's two separate questions.
We're talking about very different meanings. Yeah.
Right. One, did the Russians collude with Trump, even in so that they were aware of it and didn't do anything to stop it, and like you said, maybe take one step to let that go, but maybe we're otherwise laissez-faire. I think that's damning right there. But it's a separate question to say whether or not, because of Russia's actions, the outcome of the election is what it is. I don't think that necessarily has to be for there to be election fraud.
I don't actually. I mean, I expect the results of the election. I'm not a citizen of a banana republic. I'm a citizen of America, and I don't want anyone in the future to freaking cheat in any elections. Like, this needs to be fair.
Well, Haley, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I want everything, elections to be fair from the state to the federal level. I want all of the elections to be fair, but I'm having a hard time understanding how, on one hand, when the GOP people are pitching a fit about, there's election fraud and people are voting multiple times, to the swing of the pendulum to where, there was election fraud because the Russians are colluding with whomever. I mean, there's got to be. I mean, it's like this. There's one side of the story, there's another side of the story, and somewhere in the middle is the truth.
Election fraud.
I totally recognize that there is a hyper partisanship going on right now because there have been some, and I think that the GOP needs to recognize this. There's some bad facts on the Trump side, and Democrats. Sorry, my cat. Democrats are loving this.
Alternative facts are not good.
Agree. Haley, agree. I agree with you. Yes.
But at the end of the day, I don't even, I think that we all need to see past that and, recognize, one, this whole voter fraud, there's no evidence of the Russians interfering with voting machines. There's no evidence of voter fraud. I actually think that's a red herring. But what did happen was interference in the national discourse.
Yes.
And we're not
different things.
That. We need to be concerned about that.
Lacey wants to speak. She wants to speak.
I realize that when I said voter fraud earlier, I don't mean that type of voter fraud.
Okay.
I honestly meant dishonesty. To meet the definition of fraud, because I have to prosecute this a lot in bankruptcy, is the withholding of facts that to the detriment of another to gain an unjust advantage. That is the definition of fraud. So I don't know what the specific definition of voter fraud is, So I misspoke, and that's what I meant, which is exactly, I think, what you're saying, Haley, is that you want to be able to have a place where, you as a consumer, you go cast your, as an American, you go cast your ballot, it's going to be fairly treated. And if the president doesn't, if in any way, even if it's a 10% of 100% of why Hillary lost, and I don't give a fuck, I don't want Hillary to have to come, I know she's never going to become president. It's just seriously a matter of...
Gone. I'm over it.
Yeah, the entire Democratic Party needs to get the fuck over Hillary Clinton.
I agree. I think that it's, when I said fraud, it meant like that, not voter fraud. So I misspoke.
Yes. And that's something I want to clear up really quickly. That's the difference in the definition. When we talk about voter fraud, we're actually talking about vote manipulation in some way where you are changing the tally of votes. You're voting more than once. You're voting illegally.
You're messing with it mechanically versus an influence campaign.
Let me ask you this, because both of my majors were in science, biology and psychology. I do not have a political science major. I don't have an education in law. So my education is in science and behavioral health. Okay. So for me, when you say voter fraud, what my mind goes to is the voting booth and those, parameters from there, or those, particulars from there on out. So I'm sorry for my ignorance of law jargon. I'm not that versed on that.
Well, I think it's good that we have the opportunity to clear this up.
Because when we talk about we need to do that. That's that thing about facts. When we talk about how Russia influenced the election, what they did was they hacked the DNC servers, stole their emails, and provided the American public through WikiLeaks with the information. The Democratic Party literally cheated Bernie Sanders out of the nomination, primary, and that's how they influenced it. Is that you have so many Democrats
to start with,
because you have
one of many reasons of how they influenced it to sort of change.
Can I finish? Can I finish? Is important. You had a lot of Bernie bros that are.
He's so Bernie.
But Bernie's, I can't do Bernie. He's
wait, please.
I know, finish, Haley.
He's feeling the burn. Let him feel the burn.
Can I finish? I'm not trying to advocate for Bernie Sanders, but can I finish? Damn it.
I'll feel the burn, bro. You got
the Bernie bros sit out of the election or vote for Jill Stein just to spite Hillary Clinton because of that. They hated Hillary. The real hardcore Bernie supporters actually took up a very large portion of the Democratic Party, or at least the Democratic votes. And they sat the election the fuck out and gave it to Donald Trump. Every time a Republican wins a modern election, it is because Democrats don't go vote.
That's good.
Wait, your guy got defeated. And the Russians put that out there. That's the influence on the election. That's what we're talking about. That's how the Russians influenced the election. They let the Democrats know, hey, your party cheated you.
They did other things too. But hey, Lace, I have a question for you. So there seems to be 3 players in this whole Trump-Russia collusion thing. I'm going to assume you think that the administration colluded with Russia to win the election. Is that a fair assumption?
Do I assume?
You're on record.
Whenever I'll take that position more to play devil's advocate, but I think that there is a reasonable possibility and that I would like to get to the bottom of it.
I want to play devil's advocate with your devil's advocate.
Okay.
It's never really been so there's 3 players. There's WikiLeaks, there's Russia, and then there's the Trump administration, the Trump campaign.
Surrogates, right?
And about Trump.
It's never been explained, and I looked for this today, and it's never been explained why Russia would need to work with the Trump campaign to get WikiLeaks to do a smear campaign against Hillary. Russia just might want Trump to win the election. There's been really no explanation as to why Russia would need to work with the campaign to get WikiLeaks to do what it did.
So are you saying that, okay, because that was a long question, so I'm going to try to recite it. Tell me if I got it wrong. But you're saying first of all, you're assuming that the way that the Russians interfered with the election was by causing WikiLeaks to release sensitive information. True or false?
Yes.
Okay. Then the second part of your question is, So what motivation would the Russians have to basically interfere with the election in the way that they did, being that they caused WikiLeaks to leak
No.
and have Trump know about it?
My question is,
okay,
why would Russia have to work with the Trump campaign to get WikiLeaks to do its leaks? Like, why would they need to do that? Sorry, I need to find my charger button.
Okay, why would Russia need to work with WikiLeaks with the Trump campaign to get it to do that?
Yeah.
Well, it depends. Isn't that Assad?
What do you mean?
WikiLeaks is, what's his name?
Assange.
Assange, not Assad. Yeah, Julian Assange.
So
Yeah.
Was he originally an American that went to Russia, right?
He's Australian.
Australian? Okay. Did he live in America at any point? He must have, yeah, because he worked for
I don't think so. I think he lived in England.
Okay, then there's another one that's like similar, because honestly, I don't know enough about these guys and I get them confused, but there's another guy too. It's not WikiLeaks, but there's another guy that's a spy that's now Assange is his name, right?
Yeah, that's who I was saying.
Yeah. So who are you? Okay, I'm sorry. Then who are we talking about?
Julian Assange is the person behind WikiLeaks.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
So that guy, Assange was, you're saying he was Australian, Melissa, not American?
Yes, ma'am. He's Australian.
Okay. And he's never lived in America.
And he's in Russia right now.
No, he's currently right now in Ecuador, I think.
Well, there's another one that I'm getting confused with. That's okay. It doesn't
Or
matter.
the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK, in Sweden or
So
something.
I guess my question's a little bit more pointed. Do you care that it hasn't really been explained why Russia would have to work with the Trump campaign to get?
Oh, yeah, no, it has been. Sorry, I get your question. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the motivation behind all of this is because Russia, or the motivation that I can understand from what I read on it, is just that the motivation would be that the Russians sort of secretly want to have over this ability to kind of like take over the world and like instill forms of government that are kind of authoritarian, and that they don't like democracy. And so they're kind of trying to slowly instill a sense of anti-democracy across the world. And so they'll get people that are kind of totalitarian leaders, such as Trump, someone who thinks that the rules don't apply to him. That's the whole thing. This is all about finding someone that we can manipulate, even if they're too silly and unintelligent to realize that they're being manipulated into doing things that they're our pawn. That's why it was, you know what? Think about it.
I agree with you on that.
No. What kind of spy do you hear about? Fucking Russian spies. Sorry. Do you hear about any other kind of spy? You don't hear about Australian spies.
Archer.
About, freaking, Afghanistan spies. Maybe you do, but I mean, like, it's Russian spies. And it's because Russia's, like, that's how they move. They're slow. They're information gatherers. They get in and they manipulate and move people around. And I love Russia. I'm just saying that's like what I think their government.
Well, it's just like they did with the French campaign. The guy that they didn't like, the guy who wasn't the autocrat.
Thank you, David. Exactly right.
They did WikiLeaks and their misinformation campaign. They played the same game. They just didn't win in France.
Yeah, the thing is, they didn't really play it as well as ours because the campaign's this long.
I believe that's because America is more democratic than, is more is more conservative, and they have a different ideal than Europe. Europe's very, this is a bunch of super intense melting pots, like all close to each other. So people are more diverse over there, and they're kind of just have a little bit more socially liberal lifestyle versus over here. That's fine, but
I think their campaign cycle was shorter. The primaries were in May, the election was in July. It was just a shorter time frame.
That's awesome.
And they have an entirely different system where it's not a two-party nomination that happens, 6 months down.
There's a lot of different variables from
a much shorter process, and they just didn't have our process is so long and drawn out. You do have the ability to, do heavy.
Burn out and screw up.
Yeah.
Which you would think Trump would have someone, but I'm not going to digress on that one.
But we need to stick back on topic, because somehow I walked away for a minute and I came back and we were discussing the French election.
Well, it's sort of a heavy hypothetical. There's a lot we don't know, but to move this on, to move the conversation forward with regards to the things that we wanted to talk about tonight. We're going to move into to Meuller being appointed.
Wait.
I can't make it with just my 2 hands. I need 3 hands for I.
Well, we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
Actually, I really want to hear what Lace has to say. So if y'all don't mind, I'll just do a brief historical summary on Meuller and what I know about him, and then we can go from there.
Right on, hit it.
What I know about him is that he was appointed to head the FBI a week before 9/11. He is the second longest serving FBI director after Hoover. He was appointed. He served his term under a majority Republican leadership, but whenever his time ran out, Obama actually extended the time for 2 more years. But in order for him to do that, he had to go to Congress and get Congress to vote for his approval for an additional 2 years. And it passed with like a super majority. There was almost no one who voted no. It was quite astounding whenever I saw the stat.
Meuller was a fantastic.
He also has at least 40 years of experience just being a basic prosecutor. He apparently was a prosecutor for a while, then got really high up in the government, burnt out, and then went back to prosecuting for a few years before going back to the FBI, which I actually really liked about him. He likes trials. So I think that he is the spot-on person. I know that there's a lot of smart people in Washington. Whoever they would have picked would have been extremely intelligent. So take this next sentence that I say with a grain of salt, but I don't know if I could think of a better person they could have appointed. And I have a feeling that we picked the right person to get to the bottom of this. And if he says that there is no wrongdoing here, it'll assuage my concerns about the president, and I will move on.
Yeah, as we all should.
Yeah, and I think that's something we should all acknowledge. If this is the guy going after, this isn't some partisan party hack. This isn't a politician.
It's not Jeff Sessions.
This guy is, just the facts man.
Yeah,
he's very no nonsense. I'm pleased with his appointment to this thing.
Yeah.
And I'll be satisfied.
I will trust his findings and prosecution of this case.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Does it signify anything else, maybe in terms of the severity? Because I think I sort of hinted at that earlier at the beginning of this thing. Do you think that the fact that we have a special investigator now?
I think Reese has something to say about that.
I have something to say?
Yeah, just the fact that there's been a special prosecutor appointed. I think that you've made some good points on that I'd just like to hear you articulate a little more.
Yeah, I mean, the thing it's significant about it is that they wouldn't just do it if there wasn't some probable cause. I'm sure that's, James, you might know this better than me, but there's got to at least, I'm sure, be probable cause.
Special prosecutors special counsel is the actual appropriate term. Special prosecutor is like a colloquial thing. But special counsel is normally appointed in these situations based on public outcry. But historically speaking, when special counsel is appointed on some kind of matter of internal affairs, usually there's been wrongdoing.
Okay, so this is the second time tonight I've misspoken, because really I think, and you're right, James, because I totally failed that one, but what I meant to say, what really is the right way to say it, is to look at it like it's definitely not probable cause, because they're not accusing you of any crime. This is an investigation. It's not like a grand jury subpoena. Mm-hmm. This is just supposedly smart people that are responsible to their voters. Senators and Republicans have convened a special, it's called, and said there's going to be a special prosecutor, right? So that they can.
They are an independent source. That's what they're used for, essentially. Yeah. That this thing has gotten to a head so much that we want to make sure the investigation is not compromised. And the fact is, normally if it's a presidential matter, all the investigative sources and the prosecutorial sources are appointed by the president, which automatically kind of gives you an idea of maybe, there's a bias involved or something. We want to appoint someone outside of the field to handle it. You take full.
Isn't there a vote? Isn't it? It has to be bipartisan. Like, it's a vote.
Well, it's either. No. I thought either someone is going
to are appointed
based off of a consensus, or it's going to be the Congress calling for a public need. But in both instances, the only reason why the DOJ is acting or Congress is acting is because there's a public call for it.
The Attorney General is the only person who can appoint a special prosecutor.
Congress also can. I posted an article about that today.
Oh, they can? Congress can actually like have a 2/3 vote or something to do it?
Yeah, I read that too.
The exact logistics, but I know that that's a possibility. It's not just we're fucking America. There's not just one way to do something.
That's true. There's more than one way to skin a Trump.
Yeah.
We're not trying to skin him. Let his
That was
own
a joke.
There's a mental image.
actions and his own deeds skin him.
That was a joke. Just a joke.
All right.
Yeah.
But let's talk about skinning Trump now.
But right before we get to that, I wanted to pose a question to Melissa, who's been quiet there for a while. You know, what she thinks in terms of. Well, I'll just ask you directly, Melissa. What do you think in terms of the appointment of Meuller to this thing? What do you think about him in this role? And does that change your impression of this situation at all, as to whether or not there's fire with all this smoke?
Can I be honest, David?
Please.
I've had strep throat since Sunday.
Okay.
And I have not really paid attention to much at all.
Okay.
What color is my phlegm?
Fair.
Yeah.
No,
I just
I've been pretty knee deep in work myself, and I've not really paid much attention.
Oh yeah, and I've been trying to recruit, and I think I pulled off a coup. And if I get this bitch hired, then yay! Then all the phlegm is for naught. So.
Yeah, I was going to say that I just happened to change offices, went from one job to another, and I looked at my phone, and I was like, oh, holy shit, they appointed a special counsel. Like, what?
Yeah, there's a lot of exploding news this last week. It's pretty dang.
Yeah, the last 10 days have been pretty intense for old Trump.
I mean, it hasn't really slowed down at all.
In all honesty, David, I would love to answer that question, but I have deliberately, in all honesty, limited my consumption of all things political, because I'm at my level best in just keeping my head above water politically. I'm fed up. I mean, I've had to just kind of unfollow so many people on Facebook because, like I said, the Schadenfreude is pleasurable, but at some point, you know what? I'm tired of the politic. I'm tired of the division. I'm tired of the whole parabola swing.
The political narrative.
I think that's a good point. I talked to my dad earlier today, he's a Trump supporter. I know.
In a major way, Haley, and he's super religious. No offense, Melissa, or anyone that's religious, but religious to the point of where he's like tells me I'm going to go to hell because I don't like Trump.
What?
Hey, Lace, that's bullshit. Because
if you even talk about taking away his guns or anything, and he hated Hillary, but
I'll karate chop the shit out of someone who tries to take the gun.
he said something, guys. Let me finish. He said something similar to what you just said, and that he's tired of this Russia crap. He's tired, and he's tired of all this crap. You know, it tells, and he, while periodically telling me to get over it, I lost.
You voted for it, bro. You invited me.
Let me finish, James. But he said that he, to quote him, he's like, "Good, glad they did a special prosecutor. Then maybe we could just move on." And I think that to speak for the conservatives through my father, I think that they probably hold a similar view to him of just, you know what, good. I'm glad that they appointed a special prosecutor because let's get down to this because obviously the Democrats won't shut the crap up and we need to move on.
Well, it's a great way to look at it. I completely agree. I mean, this brings me back to a question I'd love to know. People, I mean, hell, my father's age, who's 70 now, he just entered the voting realm right before the election that Nixon won, the first one. So I want to know, what everyone did that were Nixon supporters at this time too. Like when,
I do too. That's a great question.
like how did they respond at the time? We have all these Nixonians basically.
I thought the same thing earlier, James.
Hell yeah, give us that special prosecutor. Let's see what this shit has to offer. You know, like.
Well, did they stick by him even after he was accused of Watergate?
Well, I signaled that article the other day, and yeah, there were a limited number of people who were standing by him within his administration, and then the people who were standing by him throughout the Watergate process were sort of starting to be viewed as clowns. But there was a definite bipartisan effort between the elected representatives. They didn't have social media. So whenever I say clowns, it's very outspoken people in the...
Clarify, I'm sorry. I meant to say, I wonder what the constituents thought. The layman, the average Joe. The people who support Nixon, like, die hard. What did they think? You know, how did they support it?
I think it's rather like today.
I don't know, though. I can't speak for it. I know that my dad's opinion of it was, and he's always said, after Nixon was impeached and resigned, he'd never vote for another Republican again. And now, my dad at this point is now a Trump supporter because he just really hated Hillary Clinton that much. Because, I mean, well, I don't want to visit that road, but I think that has a lot to do with sexism. But in general, yeah, my dad's gotten awfully Trumpety lately.
I think something that we have to remember too.
Hey guys, I have to go. I'm sorry, my little dog is like acting really weird. He's never acted like this. I took him to get his second booster shot today, and he's acting weird, and now I'm freaking out. I have to go. I'm sorry.
Take
I
care
love
of
you all. I'm having a great time, but
Yeah, take care of your dog. Thank you for stopping in.
Feel better, Monty.
I've never done this before in my life, and it's making me nervous. And then something bad happens to him, and I was talking on the site. I'd feel horrible, so I have to go. All right, bye guys.
Bye bye.
All right, take care.
Bye, ladies.
One of the things that I wanted to point out was that a lot of people went to jail for Nixon.
Yes, they did. Yes.
And if you're looking at the people who in a mirror fit that same description, is Steve Bannon going to go to jail for Trump? Is Jared Kushner going to go to jail for Trump?
Yeah,
I bet Kushner won't.
I think Haley, you might have been the person who mentioned this earlier. I know someone somewhere mentioned this and said, if I'm involved in this administration right now, I'm lawyering the fuck up.
Oh, that was me. Yeah. No.
Oh yeah. No, I would have lawyered up beforehand. I would have already hired counsel as soon as the man was elected and been like, walk me through this. How do I not fuck up?
So let's talk about it. Speaking of walking through, this is our last topic for the evening. We were going to talk about impeachment.
Avoiding jail.
First of all, what does it mean to be impeached? And second of all, in the context of this investigation, what would qualify as an impeachable offense? What does it take to make that specific grade?
Okay, to start off, impeachment
define
is a function of the House of Representatives that essentially removes you from office and puts you on trial.
But you have to be removed by both parties.
No,
both houses of Congress.
You do, but when you're impeached by the House, you are technically removed from office temporarily while you are tried by the Senate. You kind of.
I think a lot of misunderstanding about that because Bill Clinton was impeached by the House.
And he lost his presidential duties at the time, I do believe. I think once you've been
but he was not impeached by the Senate.
No, that's convicted. It's a
so
trial process.
Convicts you, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're impeached by the House. Then the Senate has a trial. There's a trial before the Senate where they basically allow testimony. They do their things, presenting of witnesses, all of this, the evidence and everything else. 2/3 of the Senate has to vote to convict you. If you are convicted of a high crime, misdemeanor, or treason, you are permanently removed from office. You're done.
So all that solidified was that it is not illegal for a president to get a Hummer in the Oval Office.
And lie about it. And lie about it. The lying about it was the problem. It was
the abuse of power.
But the question.
Okay, can I just be a non-interested, non-partisan person?
Yeah.
Why in the hell does it matter whether the president got a Hummer, a rim job, or a Huey while in office at all. Why does that matter in the grand scheme of running the country? Honestly,
it doesn't matter. What matters is that he lied about it under oath.
And I would also offer that had he gotten a hand job, he probably is not qualified for office because you're president of the United States and we're not in the fucking. I'm sorry. Just a joke. But no, the issue
you're absolutely right.
I get that he lied. I get he lied under oath. I get that he lied. But honestly, what he lied about, did you get a blowjob? I mean, I could ask any of the men that I dated before my husband. All of those motherfuckers are going to lie.
I mean, I know that I have been asked certain questions of like, did you do that guy last night? I've been like, no, not at all. And then in my head,
never.
But is a blowjob, is a hand job, is any of that going to? Did any of what Monica Lewinsky do to Slick Willie? Did any of that? Did any of that challenge our national security?
No.
Which is
at all.
Segue point, because right now we have a person who, what's interesting is that, and David and I were talking about this before we even got on the show, and I think that David disagreed with me. After Trump got elected, sure, the word impeachment might have come out of my mouth a time or two, but it wasn't on the tip of my tongue. But now, I check my news sources. I scroll through. Like, we're seeing it talked about more.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. It wasn't necessarily that I thought you were guilty of that per se. It's the fact that really, in my voting history, anytime we've had a president, you've had some faction who's absolutely rabid and foaming at the mouth about impeach them because they did this unconstitutional thing.
Obama was something.
They weren't born in America.
Right, yeah, because he's a Kenyan Muslim atheist.
Yeah, not qualified for office.
Communist and socialist for Chris.
What I was going to say in general there is that you come down to the question of what is a high crime or misdemeanor.
Right.
And Haley, I know you have special kind of, I guess, relationship or knowledge with this through where you went to law school, who your dean was, and the.
Yes, I was trained by Kenneth Starr.
Yeah. So has he figured out yet what a high crime and misdemeanor is? Because he obviously didn't know before.
You know what? I think he's in a lot of shit right now at Baylor, so I don't think he's paid.
Wait a minute! I went to Baylor.
Huh?
I went to Baylor as an undergrad.
Really?
Yeah.
Graduated from there?
I went to Baylor as an undergrad, and I got my master's from Loyola.
Well, there you go.
Oh, there's an interesting turn of events. You guys are juxtaposed there.
Yeah, I flipped. I went to Loyola for my undergrad, and I got Baylor for law. And I was trained by Kenneth Starr, and
crazy.
He did not like my opinions on affirmative action or gay marriage. But anyway.
For those of you who don't know, watching the show, Kenneth Starr was the prosecutor of Bill Clinton in the Senate trial.
Was he special counsel or was he the prosecutor?
He was the prosecutor.
Gotcha.
He was the person
who clarified.
He lost.
Yep, he did.
Yep,
he did lose. But he lost on the Senate couldn't decide whether or not perjury was a high crime or misdemeanor. If I remember correctly.
He wasn't persuasive enough. I'm glad that Kenneth Starr didn't like me. Anyway,
but yeah, so I brought that up.
I was in college because I never met him. I was in the biology and psychology forum. So
he became the president in 2012. So,
but I guess the important distinction I wanted to bring up there was the difference between impeachment is for it's so early to talk about the concept of impeachment because what are we impeaching Trump for? We got
a laundry list that we can go through.
That's sort of what I wanted to get to.
Right.
But before we go into, well, it's what are we speculating at this point?
Yeah.
That there's going to be evidence.
Exactly, because with Bill, it was clear. I didn't have sexual relations with that woman. It was completely proven that you lied. You are guilty of perjury. There's not even a question. The question becomes, is it a high crime or misdemeanor? Because obviously it's not treason.
Right.
I think thing is, though, James, I think that this is for a discussion, and you and I are the two lawyers here, but even I am not. I mean, I'm a trial attorney who deals with personal injury. Let's not we're all laymen here, and so whenever we're talking about that, can we just try to put on that cap?
Yeah, and that's what I brought up initially about Kenneth Starr was, you have somebody who was the prosecutor in this case who still
had a hard time trying to lay out.
The senators, everybody are confused. What is a high crime or misdemeanor?
There's one thing to him have an understanding of what a high crime or misdemeanor is, and another for him to try and make a legal argument that it was a high crime or misdemeanor. Sometimes you want to make something fit.
And you also have to understand the underlying facts that were presented to him. At the time of this proceeding, had a 74% approval rating. It was over a blowjob, as Melissa pointed out.
Oh, yeah.
The economy was growing exponentially by day. Unemployment was at a low. Things were doing good, and whenever the Senate kind of gets, he lied under oath.
Caveat.
He was a big enough to not be our president anymore. That was the ultimate question, and so I do appreciate you getting into the whole, what is a high crime? But, at the end of the day, this is a trial. This is a storytelling. And you have to stack all of these circumstantial facts on how you tell the best story. And Kenneth Starr was faced with saying he lied about a blowjob, so he shouldn't be our president, in the face of a 74% approval rating and an awesome economy. So what we're now facing is we're facing a good economy right now, but we're facing different factual circumstances, which might allow us to get more into the nitty gritty of what actually meets a high crime definition. But at the end of the day, the House and the Senate, it's all a jury. And it's all, can you convince them that this is in the American good to get this guy out of office?
Exactly. You're absolutely correct. It comes down to the whole idea of practicing.
So let's say we Donald Trump.
Oh, someone's mic's
so then we're left with Mike Pence as president. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be better than Donald Trump?
I think that's putting the cart before the horse. I think that this special.
No, Haley. Well, if that's,
I am going to jump and just say what I'm thinking, and I have no evidence to back any of this up or anything. But I think that this net casts really fucking wide, man. And I'm not fucking worried about Pence, is all I'm saying. Or Ryan. I'm not worried about Ryan either. I think that and you know what? Hand me my tinfoil hat. But I have a feeling that there's a lot that we don't know, and that it casts a lot. I have a feeling that Donald Trump will accomplish draining the swamp, just not necessarily in the way that he thought it would be.
I'm making a nerd reference to Vader bringing balance to the Force. By destroying all of everything everywhere. And
Haley, do you think this will fit? Will this fit, Haley?
I don't.
I'll make my own. Got an engineer, even though his gingerbread house collapsed. But and mine did it. But I think we are about to see the swamp drained, personally.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
That's fine. I have no evidence of any of my claims. Feel free.
Here's my thing.
This was totally.
Like I said, I have no allegiance to either party, but I think that it's and no offense, Haley, I respect you immensely, but I think it's foolish to think that if we take down Trump and Pence and Ryan, that it means that everything is right with United States politics.
Not what I said at all.
Yeah, certainly not. Yeah, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. For me, I'm.
And Haley, if I'm mistaken your commentary. My apologies to you, sincerely.
That's fine. I'll let David talk though before I come back.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm an intensely skeptical person about everything. Do I think that I think that the Russian involvement in the campaign is well demonstrated. I think at this point,
the campaign or the election.
The
campaign.
The campaign. They had a campaign of influence. I don't think that they.
Oh! I thought you meant in Trump's campaign.
James.
Right. Not of collusion necessarily. I don't know if they're going to get any sort of collusion beyond trying to cash that check. So to speak. This is sort of the question you were asking Lace, and I don't know if she was. Maybe I got the impression she was struggling to answer a little bit in terms of like, well, why would they need to talk to Trump's campaign about what they were doing, right? Well, I think it's sort of the Russian mob is a thing, and it's we helped you out, we're buddies now. Now this is what you're going to do for me, kind of thing, with regards to relaxing sanctions and these sorts of things. That I think that this is exactly. Now it's time. We didn't ask you didn't ask us to scratch your back, but we did it. So now we're asking you to scratch ours. I think if anything, again conjecturally, that's where the involvement will be, and I think that's what was going on with Flynn, probably with Sessions to some extent. Now whether or not during the campaign the Trump campaign was actually working with Russia, I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I can't say, and I won't make a statement on it at this time. Mm-hmm. Will Trump go down for this? I don't know. And it just comes to us to look at this as part of the national conversation. Is that this is what Russia did? This is what Russia wanted, because Russia was doing this for Russia, and really this hurt us. Whether or not Trump is personally involved, whether or not Trump personally gets impeached for this and removed, and we have to deal with Pence or Ryan or anybody else, we need to take a step back and say, if this is who they wanted, and these people are not our fucking friends, and I need to be real clear about that too. They're not our friends. If this is what they want, maybe we don't want this. Maybe we need to move away from whoever it is that they're trying to push up as their puppet leader for Russia, because we're fucking Americans, right? And we want what's best for us, not what's best for Russia. America first, right? What the fuck happened to that? All right, I'm done so far.
And with Melissa, I don't think that if Trump is impeached I do think if Trump is impeached, a lot of people are going to fall down with him more than we anticipate right now. But that's not the point. I don't think that you can ask Dave and James. I dread this whole process. I don't think it's going to be good for the stability of the market. Our dollar already dropped today.
That's already happening.
Exactly. Please.
I am not looking forward to this. I would totally swallow having Donald Trump around for 4 years if it meant stability, and he didn't do anything fucking stupid. But I don't know if that's going to happen, and I'm dreading this. I think that if all of this goes down, we're going to be a broken country. However, I do think that we need to have faith in our election system. We are fucking America. We need to know what we're doing. We need to know who we are electing to represent our own interests.
Haley, how much more broken can we get, though? I mean, are we not already at that critical mass where we're a broken nation?
I feel as if you're just throwing that out there to detract from me. I'm telling you that I'm
not trying to be combative. I'm just saying, do you not feel like in discourse on not just our sites that we're involved with, but on other sites, on your own Facebook wall, on other people's sites that you see, do you not feel we're at that point where there is such divisive commentary?
Well, and on the counter of that, you and I are talking right now. We are expressing different views. We are obviously having different beliefs, and we're disagreeing on a lot of things, but we're doing it cordially. One thing that I take with a grain of salt is anytime that I'm talking with someone through a keyboard, because there are ways that things can be read to be way more divisive than anything, including news articles. And so whenever we're actually talking this out, whenever we're actually getting to know the American public that we are all in right now, and the thing is, I pointed this out at the very beginning. Whenever you have an, erratic, impulsive leader and a hysterical opposition, you get left with an anxious national public that has this heightened sense of doom. And we're all talking through keyboards, and that message is fluid in that vein. And as we're talking it out now, all right, we can understand Democrats are getting a little hysterical off the Comey firing. Let's let them have their moment in the sun. But
Haley, you're 100% accurate. You're right. However, let me ask you this: do you think that the three ABC networks, the alphabet networks, may be contributing to some of that hysteria?
I think that they're made by people, and I think that all people are going to make mistakes. All people are going to input their own opinions. I think that I appreciate the fact that they are at the forefront of news, digesting it for me. But I said in the beginning, whenever you have hyper-partisanship, you got to take it all with a grain of salt. You got to realize that you're
I agree.
Keyboard and everything, and maybe we shouldn't think that this heightened sense of doom is this sort of manifested hysteria based off the fact that we don't trust in the election system right now that put our
I agree. Haley,
right now.
You're speaking actual legitimate gospel as far as politics. Unfortunately, and I agree with you, Haley, you're absolutely spot on. Unfortunately, most of the viewing public that see the alphabet networks are not as educated as those of us that are doing this broadcast. We all have multiple degrees. Granted, we all have a higher education than a good population that see like what the minimum ABC, NBC, CBS nightly news sees. So they're going to be seeing just what a limited, a fraction of what is out there. And my concern is they're going to be fed what the news wants them, the mainstream news wants them to see, but there is so much more digging into each story that NBC shows, ABC, CBS. There's more than that. And most people are not that patient, not that diligent, not that concerned to find out what the true facts are.
And that's
it's funny.
Let me cut in because I think we're starting to run on a bit here.
Yeah.
I think sort of overviewing your guys back and forth. It occurs to me that this is really exactly what we were talking about in the first podcast episode that we cut. We're talking about each side, mainstream media versus alternative media, each having their own set of facts, the ills of social media, and the fact that like Haley said, has to take everything said with a grain of salt because people are a hell of a lot more insincere, they're a hell of a lot more invective than they are in a face-to-face conversation. That even if you guys are going to disagree, even if you guys come to loggerheads, it's still going to be more respectful. There's still a higher chance that one of you is going to persuade the other to at least see your perspective, if not come over to that perspective. And that's and I think Melissa, you also had a good point in that that we're sort of coming to that breaking point with regards to the discourse with problems with the hysteria and the hyperpartisanship. That this is where we are now. That's why we made Fermenting Opinions, is because we are trying to come back from the brink and heal a little bit. And I don't want to be hope and change, but
but that is a good point though. That's the idea, is that sooner or later we have to actually listen to each other and acknowledge that we're making points of some sort. I mean, it can't just be our own stupid interpretations of what we think the facts are based on we skimmed through an article and now I accept this as my doctrine and I'm going to stand by it. I mean, we have to actually talk about it and say, okay, look, perfect example of Comey's firing and the idea of, or the Comey's memo and this idea of, well, did he disclose it to the Department of Justice, or has he done something wrong? Did Trump do something wrong? We don't know. We have to admit what we know and we don't know, and we kind of have to try to get to the bottom of it together.
And I understand that I'm privy to certain information, and I understand, how I've reached my own opinion, but I also talk to my dad on a regular basis, who's entirely different from me. He has the same distrust from the media. We have these conversations on here, but I don't have that sort of lack of faith in the American people to not ultimately want to live in a place where, they have faith in the system. I'm a trial attorney. I trust the system. I love the law. I love how our framers set it out. I think that it's great, and I think that it works. And I honestly think that every American has a closely similar opinion to that exact statement. And regardless of how you feel about Trump or Hillary or Obama or anyone, I think at the end of the day that we can all agree, if something went wrong, we don't want it to happen again. If something went wrong, someone should go down for it. And if something didn't go wrong, let's all move on and continue on with our business.
Their name deserves to be vindicated.
Yeah,
period.
Sure.
That's the entire point of the justice system, is either the truth is found out and that something has happened that was wrong, or that you're innocent and you've proved it's been shown, you've been acquitted, your name is clear.
We have systems of checks and balances for a reason, and I trust that they work.
Yes.
Amen.
And Haley, I agree with you. I am in full confidence with what our founders established as legal jurisprudence.
Oh, and we'll get into that debate on another day about all of that entails.
Sure. I know. We really do need to kind of wrap this up.
I have a Jasmina. So, James.
It's we really do need to kind of pull this all together and then kind of.
I didn't mean to throw a burr in the butt.
Hey,
no. It's so easy for us to get.
Call James either Brian or Jasmina. He loves both of those. I encourage everyone to call James McVeigh either Brian or Jasmina. He loves both of them.
Brian sounds awesome.
You're my hero. Brian.
Speaking of leaking classified information and treason.
That was a high crime.
That's certainly a misdemeanor at least.
Haley. See me lifting my glass to you. This is for you, Haley.
It's time we all say cheers and we sign this thing off.
Brian!
Who's Brian?
We got Brian.
Jasmina. My empty glass.
Cheers, everybody. We're gonna call this one an end.
Call this one a wrap. It's been a delicious ferment tonight.
It sure has been a delicious ferment.
Thank you all for coming out. Thank you anyone who's watching. Please
Can I take my knife now and pass out?
Go for it.
It's time to fall out.
But it is time for us to stop this broadcast. And thank you for joining us always.
Thank you. Bye.
See you guys. Till next time.
Bye, y'all.